All right, so we are actually live right now, even though everyone asked you to wait. So first off, I hope everybody is having a great day, and I really want to thank you guys for making the time to join me and everyone else that's gonna end up watching and talking today specifically about working with out-of-state clients and just business in general, because I think it's extremely important to get an idea of how business is, what's going on in the market right now, especially our market. Our local market is Miami-Dade. So we have a lot of things that are going on. But before we jump into anything, there's two things I want to start with. First is anyone that's watching or watching after the fact that we go live, thank you for watching. If you have any questions right now and you're watching live or you jump on later, please do me a favor, ask them in the comment section. We can definitely accommodate because this is interactive live. Second thing is I want each of you to introduce yourselves to everybody. Natalie, we'll start with you.
Oh, okay. We'll start with me. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this. And if you're watching after the fact, thanks for tuning in. I'm Natalie Zagury. I'm a real estate attorney and title agent. I've been in solo practice for about 4 years now and work closely with these two. And I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome.
Hey everyone. Okay, so we've all worked together, but in case you guys don't know me, my name is Sarah Desmore. I'm a residential realtor with Compass. So I help people buy their home or sell their home. And what's interesting with this episode, I'm actually from Montreal, Canada. I've been living in Miami for 5 years. So a lot of my clients are from Canada or from out of state, moving from New York or California or whatnot.
That's awesome. So I appreciate you guys again making time. So yes, we have worked together. Most recently, we actually worked together on a deal with an out-of-state buyer, and it's not just out-of-state buyers, right? I'm very specific about the out-of-state client dynamic because I know you both represent sellers and buyers in that capacity, and they both have unique needs. So I want to just ask you guys, like, how is business right now relative to what's going on with COVID and just everything in the market? Sarah, we'll start with you.
Okay, I didn't know what to expect, right? I think we've all been through that. I had no idea what was going to happen. I'm like, are we going to die? Is business going to die? But surprisingly, and I don't know about you, Natalie and Will, but this is literally my busiest time since the beginning of the year. I've never been so busy. It's insane. But I do understand that a lot of it came from what we were doing before COVID, right? But yeah. I mean, people are still buying. People will always need a roof over their head. And what I'm noticing too, a lot of people that wanted to wait until summer to purchase their home, let's say they're living in an apartment, now they're rushing to get their home because they're like, I'm stuck with everyone in this little apartment. Like, I can't do it. So people are really looking now. With sellers, depending on the price point, some of them took a little break. If they're early, if they're over 60, they don't want to take that risk, right? Which I totally get. And people selling condos, some condo buildings are not allowing showing. So there's some limitations there. But for single family homes, things are really going.
Yeah, absolutely. Natalie, how about you?
It's business as usual. I'm working from home. That's about the only difference. I've been inundated. Some of it is, like Sarah mentioned, things that have been in the works, and closings that are happening now obviously have come from, a couple weeks prior at least. But I've also seen an influx of new files that have come in. I handle purchases, sales, and refinancing because lenders are always going to require title insurance and it requires a closing. So I've had an influx in that also. So unfortunately, I haven't really been able to take advantage of somewhat of the vacation vibes that some people are feeling. I've been confined to the four walls of my guest bedroom, unfortunately having to hide from my baby because if he hears or sees me, it's mama, mama, mama. And I'm inundated. It's working, like Sarah said, no matter what, people are going to need a roof over their head. And whether it's holding escrow for a rental and it's a rental property that I'm helping someone on, or it's a purchase and sale, we're busy. And I think there may be an added layer of busy only because obviously we're having to work remotely and navigate that. So there's maybe an extra layer and an extra step. But I'm liking it. I'm liking the, it's keeping me on my toes. I'm learning something.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, and the good thing is, like, the general consensus is, oh, things are slowing down, things are dying down. I mean, I think we can all agree. We're all busy, right?
Not here.
Yeah. I always feel like Miami especially is kind of like the caveat to everything. It's like, oh, well, 80-degree weather, beach is 15 minutes away, sunshine all day.
Well, the rest of the country is in blizzard.
I have people that literally moved earlier because they're like, if I'm gonna be stuck in a home, I'd rather be like in the sunshine, right? Or like by a pool.
Yeah, well, that's what happened with our clients, right? They were like, we need to move this closing up.
Yeah, they're coming from New York. So we just had a transaction. Me, Natalie, and Will did the loan. I found the clients. And what's interesting with that is that it was my listing.
Yeah, right? That's right.
I was able to find the buyers from New York, and the closing came earlier because they're like, listen, New York is really not good now. It's actually the worst right now. So, the whole closing was pushed earlier for them to come early and enjoy the pool and enjoy the weather.
Yeah. So that was like the number one thing that they wanted was, we want to be able to be in the house earlier. So I wanted to kind of segue on that because speaking of out-of-state buyers and just clients, I wanted to get a sense of how you guys are getting your out-of-state referrals. And I'm going to start with Sarah on this one, just because I see you doing a lot of out-of-state client business. And when we talk about out-of-state client, like, the definition for me is out of Florida, right? But also international, because I know you both deal with a lot of international clients and out-of-state clients in that sense. But so I wanted to get an idea of how are you actually getting your out-of-state client referrals?
Okay. The interesting is with COVID is that now people are, I should have wrote, is it possible for me to change my full name? I just put Sarah. Anyways, people will find me. I always focused on digital, right? Digital marketing, because I always told myself, look, I came from Canada. How many people are moving to Miami from another state or another country or whatnot? And how are they going to find homes, right?
Yeah.
People go online, they go on Facebook, they go on Zillow, so I figured out, I always told myself, listen, if I was a client moving to another state, what would I do? And what would make me be interested in a property online, right?
Right.
So, videos, 3D walkthroughs, a lot of photos, even floor plans if it's a condo, right? Yeah. And I always did that just naturally, right? Because I told myself I want to reach the most amount of people with every single listing that I have, right? Yeah. And I think that because I've been doing that and I did that naturally with every listing, now with everything happening, people from out of state, people from different countries, I've always, found a way to reach them, right? Just the same example as, our transaction with the New York people. These are not people that I knew. These are not people that, were referred to me or whatnot. It's really true. I truly got them because of online marketing, right? Yeah. And the same for Canada. And now we're talking about sellers, right? But even when I have buyers, right? Like, I always market the fact that I can do virtual consultations, even before COVID.
Yeah.
I'm friends with a lot of realtors in Canada, right? And a lot of times they had referrals for me. And I felt way more comfortable giving them the option, listen, we can either do a video conference or a call. And I always found that video conference was always a better connection.
Yeah. And
right?
why do you...
it was more personable. And
yeah.
When realtors, and I did that before also, when realtors send me referrals, because I get a lot of realtor referrals from out of state because of social media. Yeah. What I would do is I would do a Zoom video with that realtor just to introduce myself and just to get to know them better, right? Yeah. Before they introduce me to their client.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So Natalie, I know you're on the end of the title side. But I know title agents that they like run away from out of state business because it's a little bit more complex.
It is. There's an extra layer for sure.
Yeah, for sure there's an extra layer. So with that complexity, I know there's certain agents that have a stronger grip on the out of state business. Sarah, I consider you one of them. How do you manage that? Like, how do you actually manage those expectations with those clients when it comes to doing certain business, right? Because you can't physically see them, you can't physically be there with them, maybe until closing, sometimes not. Like in our case, we never met the client. Like I've never met the client, and I know like it wasn't a physical transaction; it was still in New York. So how do you manage those expectations with out of state buyers?
So from the onset, I too will jump on a Skype. Well, it's not Skype, excuse me, FaceTime. So it's literally from my cell phone. I like to know who I'm dealing with, and they like to know who they're dealing with. It also helps that when we get to the actual closing, I feel that I have a personal relationship. There's a lot of correspondence that goes back and forth between my firm and the buyer or the seller, whoever we're working with. And honestly, regardless, both parties were involved. And corresponding throughout the transaction. So a relationship is really cultivated. From onset, I try to determine whether things are going to be handled in state or out of state. And depending on the state, I have very close contacts as far as a mobile notary or another law firm, a sister law firm in New York. I have a few where we have a great referral business because there's a lot of business that's passed and a lot of clients that snowbird and live in both places, have properties in both. So I've developed relationships really actually through BNI. I'm a big believer in that networking group, and it's worked really well for me. And through that and their platform, I've been able to reach out and find other attorneys that do similar work. Actually, most of them are actually probate attorneys, and it's a really good referral source for me for out-of-state clients, because those probate attorneys are doing the trust agreements for older clients, a different demographic that maybe, is trying to quitclaim deed their property or sell their property to their children and so they then need a Florida attorney to handle those transactions. And so when I can help their clients out, if I need a mobile notary or someone to host a closing for me up there, they're just a phone call away. And when that's not feasible, luckily now we're in a time where the law is really catching up, and we have resources like the remote online notary, we have e-closing, and regardless of whether I'm physically there notarizing it or I have someone as a representative there, I always appear via FaceTime so that the client knows that I'm present. I can review all of the documents in real time with them as they're signing and explain everything. That's typically, that expectation's usually set out from the very beginning so that everyone's aware of how we're going to actually execute the closing.
Awesome. I just wanted to add something when Natalie spoke about, she'll do the remote closing if necessary and whatnot. One thing that I do with her is that the moment that I meet the clients, because it happens that I get out of state or international clients from Canada, the moment that I meet with them or that I have the consultation, I introduce them to Natalie from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because they already know that she's part of it. That way, during the process, if they have questions, they can ask her. We've had situations where from the beginning, we knew that, let's say, I would need a power of attorney.
Yeah. Right.
We knew that like they have a family member that's going to need a power of attorney, right?
Or they're planning a vacation or a last showing, and sometimes I'll draft the documents I know that they're going to need, especially on a seller side. I can draft those conveyance docs, hold them in escrow. So it really just depends. Sarah's absolutely right. Me coming in at the onset is always the earlier the better, because we can just prepare for it. There's different ways. Sometimes it is possible to figure out a meeting point. Sometimes getting that POA is easier. Obviously, COVID and having the quarantine at play has
put it on the phone.
Yeah. So we've navigated it through it, and it honestly pretty seamlessly. I think because we're so used to working with out of state already that we were almost already quote unquote quarantined from the client. So this really hasn't affected business.
No, I agree 100%. Now, Sarah, you have this unique ability to be able to build trust and have people trust in you like very quickly, i.e. with the transaction that we had. Now that you were talking about when you first introduced Natalie, it brought the memory of how you introduced us. Like it was a night of having the conversation and we just got on the phone. The clients never questioned me once, never, not once, not a single time did they question me or anything that we brought to the table. So I wanted to ask you, and this is relevant to both of you, but I wanted to ask how, like, do you have any tips for anyone that's watching or will be watching on how you build trust with out-of-state clients? Because I think it's very unique, right? You're not there, you're not physically seeing them. They're not there's no physicality there. So how do you actually do that? Because this was all over the phone, by the way. There was no video, there was nothing. It was all over the phone for anyone
Yeah.
that's curious. This is all over the phone.
You know what? To this day, I've never met them.
Yeah. So we've none of us have never met them. And it's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Other than over the phone, like I know what they look like.
To me, all the time, I have sellers that I've never met, right? Remember Mariana? Like multiple transactions and I've never met them. So like for me to build trust, and I think it applies to any business, is to be an expert in your field.
Yeah.
Right? When I'm talking to an out-of-state client, no matter what question they answer me, most of the times I can answer their questions, and I'll even provide them with information that I know that everyone will ask me, right? I'll already tell them from the first conversation, listen, if you want to get a mortgage, there's no such thing as 10%, 20%. You might even need to put up to 50%. You know, like I said, the expectations very clearly from the beginning. And I know my stuff, right? So I make sure that I constantly get educated on the interest rates, what's going on around the world, what's going on in the housing market. And I also get educated on different states and different countries. I'm always on top of it when it comes to what's going on in Canada, right? In terms of the exchange rate. I'm always on top of it when it comes to taxes in New York and California to know, okay, are people going to change their residence? A lot of people are going to want to change their residence to Florida, right? So I think that to build trust, you really need to be an expert in your field. And I think that focus on customer service excellence is very, very important, right? Someone in a different state or in California, they might call me very late at night, at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., because it's a different time for them, right? I'm always available for that.
That's great.
You know, we all have children. Of course, I do have to have some limitations, but I'll talk to them on weekends, at night, very early in the morning. You know, whenever I have clients from Europe, I know I have to talk to them at 7 a.m., right? Or 6 a.m. sometimes, because that's the time that they're available or that they have their lunchtime, right? So being flexible, customer service, and just being very knowledgeable, you know, constantly learning the field and what's going on and how the market is going. That way, whenever you talk to clients, they can immediately see you as an expert and trust you really quickly.
Absolutely. And Natalie, on your end, because I know for you, it's a lot, there's a lot of technicality, it's numbers, it's a lot of, you know, throwing documents out back and forth. So how like any tips on your end on how to build trust and kind of take the baton when it comes to working with the out-of-state clients?
For me, it's really it's been full transparency from the onset. And that is, you know, I try to put myself in everybody's shoes and I say, okay, if I'm buying a home, I want to know what the fees are. What are people scared of? That, you know, people are watching their money, that they're scared for their pockets. That is what could go wrong in a transaction for someone, on a buyer or seller. Is their cash to close going to be too high? What are their proceeds going to be at the end of this? So I try to operate, I operate with full transparency from inception, whether it's initial, like first conversation. If this is the purchase price that you're thinking of selling, let's get you a settlement statement. And I always estimate high on what lien searches and things may cost so that there are no surprises. I think that people appreciate that. And at least I can say, you know, prices will vary because we have to order these things from certain vendors, but this is like worst case scenario, what you're going to be walking away with essentially. So I think operating from full transparency and availability, people want to know, especially when it's for the purchase of their biggest investment of their life. For most people is their home, that they can get in touch with you. So I have been so bad at setting boundaries. I have no boundaries. I will answer calls, text messages, emails at literally all hours. But I feel like it's my obligation, what I have to do. That's my job. I don't, sometimes I look at people, attorneys or agencies that they shut down at 5 and I'm like, wait, how? People are at work all day. They don't have time to call you. They're at work. You need to be available. Like, it's a service-based industry. And I think that sometimes people forget that, especially lawyers, but at the end of the day, it's a service-based industry, and I need to be able to provide the utmost service to my clients and availability for them, and knowing that they can pick up the phone and ask me a question, it gives them that confidence. I'm not hiding from them. They're not going to have any surprises at the last second. Like, there's constant communication.
Absolutely. And I could resonate that 100%. So you guys you talked about the importance of your out-of-state client referral network, whether it's realtors, etc. Do you guys have any tips, especially Sarah, on, you know, how to build that referral network?
Yeah.
I know we mentioned business groups, but I wanted to get both ends of that answer.
Okay, I've been doing, well, BNI is great. You know, it's a great way to connect with other people. But I really found that the best thing for me was one, social media. You know, sometimes I hear realtors that say, oh, you know, why are all these realtors following me? Listen, like, who cares, right? If they're a realtor, like, you guys can exchange information. I made really, really good friends with other realtors through social media. And we only met like 2 years later, right? Just by engaging with other realtors on social media, that's very important, especially if they're, you know, in a different city, in a different state, in a different country, just following them back and engaging with them, right? That way, you know, I've had realtors like just recently, I have a listing that's actually under contract, and it was another realtor that I've never met. I didn't even know she followed me. She literally just emailed me like, hey, I've been following you for like 4 years. Are you open to referrals, right? So just making sure you're always posting relevant information, engaging with other realtors. And another thing that I do that's been amazing is that I go to out of state conferences, right? I go to a lot of trainings. I'll go to California, I'll go to New York. Even when they're doing the training in Orlando, I'll go. And even when they're doing it in Miami, right? Let's say like the Tom Ferry events, they'll do it in Miami. Even though it's my hometown, I'll be going just because I know a lot of people will be traveling to come to Miami. And then when I get all of the business cards, I'm not just like, okay, bye. No, like I'm actually like adding them to my database. If they follow me on social media, I'll follow them back. I'll usually write an email after the event, like, hey, great to meet you. Just, you know, just to remind you that my name is Sarah. I serve Miami and everything. And also on my business card, I have a different business cards for when I go to events, right? I have my like, regular business cards that I give around.
I love that you do that. And I saw people do that. I went to one of the events that she's talking about that I believe it was hosted by Compass. And
yeah.
And there were all of these agents. I ended up just plopping down at a table. I went by myself. And all of these agents are there from Chicago, and they were passing around business cards that literally said, it was really great to meet you while I was in Miami. Like they had business cards printed.
Specific.
Yeah, I remember seeing it and being like, this is amazing. Like, now I'm going to remember where I met you, how I know you, like, and it ended up being that there was actually a connection. I know the closing attorney that they use in Chicago is one of my best friends from college, mom.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's so
I was like, oh, where, like, what suburb? And so we started talking, and I'm like, oh, well, do you know so-and-so? And they were like, she does all my closings. So,
have you guys ever been to a networking event and someone gives you their card, and then you look at the business card like 3 days later, you're like, who the hell was that? So there's no address. There's a phone number with a different zip code, but that doesn't mean anything. The zip code doesn't mean that's the zip code of where they live. Look at you, Will. You have a New York, not zip code, I'm sorry, an area code.
Yep.
You have a New York area code, but you live in Miami. Like, a lot of times I end up with business cards and I'm like, okay, where do these people live? Like, who was it again? Like, I'm not sure. So like, I made sure that when I go to those networking events, my business cards have my photo on it. And it's written Miami, like in capital letters, right? Like in Miami, and I put like my Instagram at big letters too. That way, like, hey guys, stay in touch with me. If you don't want to add me on Facebook or email me, at least follow me on social media.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. That's actually different. I haven't heard that, and now that I heard it, I'm like, that is actually very unique. Yeah, yeah. Because you think about it, in my case, my office is based out of Broward. I have a area code, but I work and live in Miami predominantly. So when I get and I mean, the craziest thing I do is I have my Instagram handle now, and that's just recently that I give to people, and they can follow me. But having a separate card, I mean, it just got me thinking now. It's probably going to be worthwhile to do that. Huge, yeah, huge. So I
and like how easy to do like same day, printing at an Office Depot, like, and get, a box of 50 cards that are printed specifically for the event that you're at. Like, you can even list the event, like, so they really remember who it's inexpensive, it's quick, and so efficient. Like, if there's a big networking event that that you're going to go and be in front of, a bunch of people, like, it's so smart. And I thought it was like the most genius thing.
No, the only thing that I would add,
I didn't think of it,
One thing that I would add with that though is that there's people that do too much, right? Like some people, they'll print like a flyer and they give you a flyer. Like the moment you give it to me, I'm like, oh, this is great. But then I try to put it in my wallet or in my bag and I'm like, okay, this is not working out. And then I end up like throwing it away, right? So like make sure that it's like a size that's like a regular card. Don't do too much because then it's going to be hard. Like next thing you know, you have to fold it in 5 to like, it's too complicated.
No, I totally, yeah, because then it's like so easily, like, it stands out, but not in a good way, right?
Right. You're like,
Oh, another realtor, what she would do, like that's like over the top, but it's good. Whenever she would meet you and it was like a really good connection, she literally had business cards printed on like a $5 Starbucks gift card.
What?
I was like, ooh, that's a good idea.
How do you do that?
Really good idea. That's a really good idea.
There's a bunch of vendors that do that. So like, it's like your card is literally like a gift card and like your photos on it and everything.
That's wild. That's wild.
Yeah, I was like, that's a great. It's expensive. So I guess she would only give it to you once she had like a really good conversation with you. So
yeah.
Maybe she had 20 or 30, and it's such a good idea.
That's cool.
100%.
Like I'll always remember her.
So I want to ask you guys, what's the difference between working with an international seller and a domestic seller? Because I know country plays a difference, but let's just talk about that a little bit. Natalie, you could start, and then we'll go into Sarah as well.
Mine's a quick, short answer for that one. FIRPTA. So when I'm working with an international seller versus a domestic seller, there is an Irs tax that most people are unaware of, and it so often where I'm representing the buyer and the seller has their own attorney or what, and they get to the closing table and they're like, "What is this 15% tax?"
And a lot of
which is chunk of proceeds, and because no one advises them, and they're like, "I didn't agree to this," and fortunately or unfortunately, it's in the purchase contract. It's in the as-is contract. Like it absolutely has to get paid or we can't close. And it's actually a burden on the buyer to ensure that the seller pays that tax. So it's a little odd because how could the buyer be responsible for ensuring that the seller pays this tax? Well, typically the buyer chooses title and the attorney that's doing the transaction. And so it really falls on the settlement agent to ensure that those funds are held from closing proceeds and sent directly to Internal Revenue Service. So that for me is the biggest. Obviously, as far as communication is concerned, again, those hurdles, I never let those things stop me.
I want to touch on this real quick because I just came up with a few questions about FIRPTA. So 2 things. First, because this has come up before, people have asked me, I'm like, I don't know. I know it's an extra document, but now that you explained it, and now that I understand it's 15% tax, like first off, the question is who pays that, and is that negotiable? First. Second, if it's not paid, right? Let's just say that there's an error, just a clerical error, and it's not paid. Is there now a lien that's going to be placed on that property, or like how does that?
It doesn't necessarily function. Yes, essentially it does function that way. And it would become the buyer's responsibility. So the buyer's only recourse at that point is to go to their legal counsel, and it goes down the chain. So really the burden falls on the settlement agent. So typically when there's an a foreign seller, from the get-go, I try to advise the realtor, listen, when you're setting, depending on when I get brought in, sometimes I'm brought in and there's already an executed contract and they're like, wait, I would have sold my house for more or held out for, more. Either build that in on the top as far as what you're expecting. It's not that it's negotiable, but there are parameters. There's some circumstances when it's not due, and it depends on the purchase price and whether the new buyers are taking the property as their primary residence. So if it's under a certain dollar amount and the buyers are taking it as their primary residence, then you can get around it. There's affidavits. I'm not a CPA, so I'm not giving tax information, but there are ways that you can ask for a withhold certificate, in which it's an application process, and the IRS will tell you, based on your information that you're providing them, how much the withhold has to be. But it's between 10 to 15%, 15 being that standard. And if you can get it reduced to 10, and then only in certain circumstances, if it's a primary residence under a certain amount, will it be 0.
Okay.
It comes out of the proceeds on the settlement statement. And because that's the only way the attorney can ensure that it actually gets paid.
Wow. Thank you. That was actually really, really useful. So I really appreciate that. Okay, so Sarah, what's the difference for you with working with international sellers
It's funny because I've been thinking about that question for a little bit, and I'm going to say that a lot of times it's even easier for me to work with an international seller versus a
Yeah.
domestic seller. Because if an usually international sellers are selling a property that's usually vacant, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And even if they had a tenant, the moment they decide to sell it is really when the tenant is leaving. You're not going to usually sell a property with a tenant. So usually the property is vacant. So it gives me more opportunity to do different things. We can stage it. We can do virtual staging, or even if we don't do any of the staging because let's say it's a lower price point or whatnot, it's just easier to show because there's nobody living in it, right? There's no constraints in showing and whatnot. The only thing is with international sellers, there's more education.
Got it.
I'll have people that'll say, well, in Canada this and in Canada that. And I'm like, well, in the US, it's different, like for example, just a small example, right? In Canada, when you have, so the loan approval, right? You know how we have grid, it's like 3 days, right? Canada, it's a little bit longer than that. Canada, it's notaries that close on properties, and notaries are law graduates, right? In Miami, it's a title company or a title agent. It doesn't have to be an attorney. So I'll have clients that literally start like a panic attack.
Because if it's not an attorney on a transaction, she's called.
I've told her. So usually my clients, the sellers, will use an attorney because I already know, especially if I'm working with Canadians, I'm like, they don't want to know anything about a title company. It has to be an attorney. People from New York too, right?
Yep.
But then when you see that the other side, it's a title company, like some of them start panicking, and I have to tell them, listen, it's actually normal. That's how we function in Florida. So with international sellers, there's a little bit more education that goes into the whole process, right?
Yeah.
There's more market updates also because they're not there to see how things are going, right? Like we might have, let's say, a month with no activity, but that's because that's how the building is. And at that price point, that's how it is, right? So there's a lot more education. Whereas when the sellers are here, most of the time, sometimes they lose their mind, but usually when they're here, they see what's going on. So there's a little bit less education, right? So it's just in general, I find it a little bit easier with either out-of-state or international sellers.
Awesome. So I appreciate that because that was actually really informative. So another question for you, Sarah. What are some of the best ways to actually show properties when out-of-state buyers not able to see it in person? So how do you have it set up?
Well, now we have COVID going on. So the best way for them to look at the property is really with a 3D tour, right?
Yep.
Hopefully, I'm always praying like that realtors actually do that because it's not up to me. If I'm working with a buyer, I can't control what the listing agent does for marketing, right? But usually when there's a video, a 3D tour, and a lot of photos, that's amazing because we can narrow properties down, right?
Yep.
And then when they do want to see a property, I work with a lot of people, even people in Miami, or people, I'm sorry, not in Miami, like let's say West Palm and they need to move to Miami, right? Once we've narrowed everything down, I will go and I'll take videos for them or I'll FaceTime them while I'm at the property. So those are usually the best ways.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I wanted to ask you both technology, right? Because when we're working out-of-state buyers, out-of-state sellers, most of them don't come, right? Most of them can't. The ability to actually fly, especially right now, they just can't do it, but they can still close. What kind of technology are you guys using to keep your out-of-state clients informed through the entire process?
So I try to be as accessible as possible, and the best way for me to do that is my cell phone, as simple as that is. When it comes to technology, obviously I've utilized Zoom because when I am reviewing documents with someone, it's a lot different when I have them. They can hold up the page, they can ask questions about certain figures on a page. So Zoom has been super instrumental, and truly my cell phone is my best friend. It is my whole business, which you wouldn't think, but whether it's a text, an email, or everything is accessible through my phone. We've utilized Zoom. I have a closing software that'll automate and send alerts. But at the end of the day, they're going to text me.
Yeah.
And they have a question because it's just the easiest way for them. It's just where we are in life. And that's how people are communicating.
No, that makes sense. There's no 9 to 5 here. I don't think anyone else work 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So, how about you? What technology? I know you have multiple, especially being with Compass and having that platform.
Like the Compass platform is great for the beginning, of the process, sending the listings and everything. But for me, when working with people out of state or internationally, I think WhatsApp is the best, right? I just find it easier to send files or to send photos and videos through WhatsApp. It's way quicker. It goes through. There's no
What about
issue.
Android or?
Yeah.
I don't know what's up with iMessage, but like on WhatsApp, when you send like a voice note, which is another way that I communicate a lot with because sometimes I'm like, okay, this is a long paragraph that I could write, and I'm not gonna call them because then the conversation is just gonna take forever. So I'll just send like a quick voice note, right? On WhatsApp, the voice notes remain.
Yeah.
And on iMessage, they disappear. So I really like using WhatsApp. And like Natalie said, my phone is basically my best friend, right? So for consultations, I'll use Google Hangouts or I'll use Zoom.
Yeah.
And, I use another thing called Jot Forms. So usually when I do like the initial buyer consultation, I use Jot Forms.
Jot Forms
just like and I have a Jot form for people buying from another state or another country. I have another Jot form for people locally, which is totally different. I have another Jot form for when only it's a virtual consultation for people in Miami. So I have different forms that I use for me to ask relevant questions.
Absolutely. So in terms of out-of-state clients and understanding the challenges that exist with them, because I think, and I speak to a lot of agents. I think that the general notion is, oh no, it's there's no difference, but there is a significant difference. I mean, when you do it for a while, it becomes second nature, right? But there are differences and there are challenges. So for anybody who's watching, who may be an international client or who may be out-of-state client, when you're talking to them, what are some of the value propositions and some of the things that you speak to them about to make them understand that, hey, there are differences and challenges that we need to be aware of, and this is why I am the person to work with in that capacity?
Well, usually the way that I go about it, I'm like, well, I was an international client, right? So everything that anyone is going to go through, every single emotion, especially when they're actually going to be moving. I'm talking like when people are not buying a property for investment, if they're really moving to Florida or whatnot.
Yeah.
My biggest thing is I've been there, right? I've been through the whole thing. I know all of the emotions you're experiencing. It's very scary. And you're moving to a new country, and Miami is like a country of its own in the US. It's like, it's totally different than anywhere else you would go. And just by coming from a place of understanding, right? And coming from a place of experience, and also just working with really awesome people. And the way that I do it usually is that, like I said before, I'll introduce them to you guys at the beginning, and I will introduce them even to like an insurance agent, an alarm system guy, a girl that does nails, a lady that does house call for hair, just like, listen, whatever you will need in Miami, I have somebody for you. Here's a list of all the vendors and the people that I work with. You can text them, you can call them anytime. Some of them, if you mention my name, they'll give you a discount, right? So that way, we can make your move as seamless as possible.
That's awesome.
All of that is like from the beginning.
No, that's actually a really cool way to explain it. So I'm gonna ask a title question because I think it's important. So working with international clients, out-of-state clients, what are some tips to avoid wire fraud? And if you want to give like some context of what wire fraud is, definitely be my guest to do that.
So it's rampant right now, and it's really unfortunate. I've seen, and unfortunately, title companies, title attorneys, real estate attorneys, escrow agents, we are targets for it, because if you're out there on Instagram or have any ads and people know that that's what you do, the bad guys are going to find you. And if the more business that you're doing, the more your escrow letter gets sent out, the more your wire instructions could be passed. So strict standard protocol. And it's fortunately or unfortunately, Sarah's actually been in a situation with me where I held escrow and I withheld it. And for weeks, another agent couldn't get her commission because she wouldn't answer her phone. And I couldn't verbally confirm. No wire in my office goes out unless I have spoken and they can confirm the wire instructions. So the same should hold true, especially for buyers who are wiring their cash to close or their escrow deposit. Yes, it's coming from a lawyer and you think no problem, but wire fraud happens right underneath your nose. And even the most sophisticated old school attorneys who read everything with a fine-tooth comb and are super diligent, they've fell victims to it. And it could be the most minor change where someone can intercept an email, because that's typically how wire instructions are sent via email. Our wire instructions are always password protected. and the password sent in a subsequent email. So they have to go through the password, and then there's instructions to please call to verbally confirm. So there's 2 layers of it, 2 layers of protection that we put in place, and we always ask, it's on the bottom of every signature block for us, that the buyers are just as diligent. We will not send wires to, and it's not just incoming wires that can be intercepted. It's outgoing wires that can be intercepted as well. So whether I'm sending a broker commission, unless if it's not a broker that I can get on the phone, they're going to be sitting and waiting for their commission for a while, because I just won't send it and say a prayer that just because I'm liable for it. And I've heard crazy stories, even attorneys, $500,000 wired to the wrong mortgage company because a payoff was sent, it was intercepted, and they may have changed. It might have been, I don't know, XYZ Mortgage Company Inc. or XYZ Mortgage LLC, and they change it. And if you're not super diligent about noticing whether a period's off or a comma's off or if they change the letterhead and then they change the wire instructions, and if you didn't call to verbally confirm, and you have to even be careful about calling the number that's on the instructions. So if it's for a company, I never call what's on the form. I look it up, I Google it, and I say, okay, I'm going to call XYZ Mortgage Company and find out. I'll call their payoff department and I look up their number separately. I don't ever even trust what's on the face of the document. It's rampant, and you have to be really careful.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So thank you for that, because we actually experienced that. Not us specifically, but we had a title company that experienced it trying to pay off a mortgage. And it ended up being a nightmare for the title company and for the clients and everyone involved.
And depending on their policy and their E&O insurance, you have to really, because it's become rampant, I've had to work with my insurance agent to get different policies in place for cybersecurity, because some normal regular E&O policies don't cover it. And when you're paying off a mortgage, it's usually a hefty amount.
Yeah, it definitely so, hundreds of thousands. So you guys have given me a lot of time. I'm gonna ask one last question to Sarah, because I think it's relevant and it's important for anyone that's watching, will be watching, or watches this in the future, that is thinking about relocating to Miami. How would you describe Miami to anyone thinking about relocating?
Okay. Okay. Miami is really, really an awesome place to live. It's very multicultural. There's a lot of things going on. So there's something for everyone, right? So if you're more of a hippie and you like to walk around a lot, Coconut Grove might be good for you. If you're younger, a younger professional, you might live in Brickell. If if you have a family and you want to be in the suburbs, you can live either in Kendall. If you kind of want to be in between the suburbs and between where everything's going on, you can go to Miami Shores or the Gables, right? Like there's so many different neighborhoods for everyone and for every budget, right? Yep. If your budget is $300,000, you can find a really, really big house, or you can find a 1-bedroom condo. So there's really something for everyone. And Miami, compared to other places in the US, right? Our prices are amazing.
Yeah. Sure.
For what you're getting and the atmosphere and the culture.
No comparison. There is, and even when people complain a little bit, sometimes I tell them, listen, most of the times the values are going up.
Exactly.
Right? No matter what you buy, and I haven't seen that even in Canada or in New York, or it takes longer. Miami, because we have so many people coming from all over the world, the values are always going up, and people are buying cash, right? Which also adds more competition to this, but. Why do you think that so many people are coming here? Because it's an awesome place to live.
That's awesome. So to kind of synapse it, it has something for everybody. Even if you want to go out and be a farmer, Miami has it. Like we have everything. Legitimately, we have everything. And the second thing is, when you compare it to other markets, like me being from New York, when we bought our house was the same exact price as our 650 square foot 1-bedroom apartment.
Exactly. Right?
Yeah, and the best view that I had was a view right between like a fire escape that was like 2 feet of a park. So from that standpoint, I totally resonate with that, and I agree 100%. So in closing, I really want to thank you both for joining us. Thanksgiving, everybody. I want to ask Natalie and Sarah if you can give everyone your contact details, how they can reach you, your phone numbers, emails, social media, etc. Natalie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not shy. I have the best place, honestly, to reach me is my cell phone, and you can find my cell phone. It's on my Instagram page, which is Natalie Zagury Scott, or you can follow the business and see what we're doing on a daily basis and how we're closing our transactions at Zagury Scott PA. And I think you guys can see the way it's Zagury is spelled, because that can trip some people up. But my cell phone, which is all listed on Instagram, you can call, text, or email, and I'm available.
Thank you.
Okay, well,
I look forward to
it's my fault. I didn't put my full name at the beginning of the call, and then people can't find me now. And even if I spell it out, everyone's going to forget. So I would tell everyone to go on my website, gorgeousmiamihomes.com. And then there you have everything. You have my Instagram, my Facebook. You have, you can start a search. You can have, see some Miami communities. You can see everything on that website. So
awesome.
gorgeousmiamihomes.com. I'm Sarah Desamores. If you look me up, complicated last name, but Sarah with an H in the end, and Desamors. So
awesome. And I'm gonna tag both of you guys, so all your details, though, you'll be easily found. And you guys will be able to see this on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. It'll be streaming pretty much everywhere. So everyone, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
you.
Have a great afternoon.
bye, guys. Ciao.